Let's bring in U.S. Congressman Michael Burgess. He spent 3 decades practicing medicine. He's now vice chairman of the Congressional Subcommittee on Health. His district, by the way, is just a few miles away from Texas Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. We all want to learn from the mistakes that were made in order to make sure those mistakes are not repeated right now. First of all, what are you hearing about this 26-year-old nurse who contracted Ebola from Mr. Duncan, who passed away last week?
Well, of course, everything I know is what I've read in the media and public sources. But she apparently self-identified herself as having trouble last Friday and presented to the hospital. And in fact, in a fairly short period of time, she was appropriately handled and given the diagnosis. It's obviously tough for her and her family. But at the same time, I am grateful that because of her experience and her training, she was able to recognize what was going on and speak up and say, I need some help with this. And that's incredibly important.
Should more money be appropriated by the U.S. Congress to deal with these kinds of issues? We know there have been budget cuts, the so-called sequestration, less money for the Centers for Disease Control, the NIH, for example, that had earlier been planned. Is Congress doing enough?
Well, realistically, on the CDC appropriation, I think their appropriation this year exceeded what was requested in the president's budget. But look, we can have those discussions, and we should have budgetary discussions, but the here and now dictates that this is going to cost a good deal of money to get through this. And sure, Congress needs to be prepared to do what is necessary. But I will also say that, you know, there are some things we could be doing to lower our risk. And your senior medical correspondent, Elizabeth Cohen, when I was on one of your programs a week or two ago, and she talked about what happened when she came back from Liberia and told the folks at the intake station on our side that she had just returned from Liberia covering the Ebola epidemic, and they said, welcome home. Oh, wait, here's some things you need to watch out for. We're not doing a good enough job. Now, I will tell you this, Wolf, and not everyone agrees with me, but I think all voluntary travel between Liberia, the nations in Western Africa, and the United States should be put on pause, should be put on hold. Things did not happen the way the CDC told us they would happen. All of the information they put out in September is now non-operational. And honestly, we need to give our system, our medical system, our doctors and our nurses a chance to catch up. The pandemic plan in 2005 did acknowledge that you could perhaps slow a disease down at the border. We have to be prepared to do that now.
It sounds, Congressman, like you've lost confidence in the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta.
No, absolutely not. But I will tell you this, Wolf, I think this illness has taught all of us a lot of humility over the last 6 weeks. The things that were talked about when the president went to CDC in September, those are non-operational today. And I think you just have to recognize the fact that this outbreak is serious, it's evolving, and the problem with this virus, and there was a great article in the New York Times this morning about how the viral load increases with time, such that by the end of the clinical presentation, when someone is near death, the viral load is just unbelievable. And that's why all of the people who were working around this patient toward the terminal event, they're now at significant risk and need to be monitored appropriately, and I'm glad they are.
Well, you're a physician, so one final question. Those who come down with Ebola, let's hope there aren't any more, but Tom Friedman, the head of the CDC, Anthony Fauci of NIH, they both said in the past few days they wouldn't be surprised if there are more Ebola cases in Dallas. Here's the question to you. Should they be treated? Should they remain in Dallas or move to Nebraska or Emory University Hospital, Alaska, where they have more specific treatment centers?
My belief is that is the case. Now, I will also tell you, I think Presbyterian has been on a pretty steep learning curve, and I think there's no question that they have, you know, their experience is now valuable. But the statements that were made early in September that any hospital ought to be able and be prepared to deal with this illness, I don't think so. You can go to a university and say, I want to study the Ebola virus, and you can't do it. You've got to go to specialized labs, specialized centers around the country that are prepared to deal with this virus. The same is probably true of our hospitals as well.
and we're just getting this in, a statement. I just want to read it from Nina Pham. She's the 26-year-old nurse who contracted Ebola in Dallas. She's at that hospital in Dallas. She says she's doing well. I'm doing well. Want to thank everyone for their kind wishes and prayers. I'm blessed by the support of family and friends. I'm blessed to be cared for by the best team of doctors and nurses in the world at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital, Dallas. So that's good news. Elizabeth Cohn reported it earlier, but I want to make sure that we get that up on the air. So fortunately, she says she's doing well. Let's hope that stays the case. Congressman Burgess, thanks very much for joining us.
Great. Thank you.